Back here with another review of WandaVision Season 1, Episode 8, the penultimate episode of the show. We got a lot to get into here today. They gave away a lot of answers, but still a lot of questions remain regarding the show. And to help me break it down, as always, the doc, Chris Mueller himself, at BR_Doctor on the Twitter machine. Chris, what's going on, dude?
Not much. Always happy to talk WandaVision again.
And Phil, you're back as well. Phil Lindsey from the Twitter machine, at PhilDL616 on Twitter. Phil, what's going on? Phil, you still there, or did I lose you? Oh, I think we lost Phil.
Phil?
He may have disconnected by accident.
It, shows he's still in the call.
Yeah. Maybe he's muted by accident. Oh, wait, Phil, you there?
I'm here.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I think my Wi-Fi cut me off.
Oh, no worries, dude, no worries.
I'm here.
No, you're good. Yeah, I'll just edit that part out, no worries. So what's going on, Phil? How you doing?
I'm good. Looking forward to talking about this episode.
Phil, I always have questions for you because I know every single week we talk about Ultron, and I have even more Ultron questions this week as to how this relates to the movie, because I feel like we get a new Easter egg every single week. So I feel like it's a recurring segment to talk about Ultron. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was sitting there there's some Ultron Easter eggs here for sure.
Yeah, no, there definitely was. We'll get to that. I have some questions about that and a lot of other stuff. And again, they gave away a lot of answers. They explained a lot. It was like a Ghost of Christmas Past-esque episode with Agatha taking Wanda through these many periods in her life, from when the parents died to when she was experimenting with the Mind Stone through Hydra, all the way up until interactions with Vision and getting the body back. And again, there was a lot explained, but still a lot of stuff yet to be answered. My first question for you guys, though, Phil, I'll start with you. I saw some talk of this online. It was not a polarizing episode. I don't feel like that's the right word to describe it, but some people said one of the best episodes yet, with what they kind of hit upon, which we'll get to in a moment. But there were some other people that were like, well, this was a filler episode. Obviously, there really wasn't a lot going on before next week. I disagree with that. What's your assessment? Was this a filler episode to you, or was this one of the best ones yet?
No, it's definitely not a filler episode. I don't understand why anybody would think it's a filler episode, because it filled in a lot of blanks of stuff we didn't know. But, I think everybody has been theorizing so much. Everybody is in we already knew that. I already guessed that. That doesn't mean that they didn't have to still, flip over their cards and answer a lot of questions, though.
Exactly. I mean, the thing is, too, I'm glad you said that, because just because we might know some of the answers to these questions, that was already implied, or we already knew that, you got to remember, too, there's a lot of casual viewers watching this show, probably on Disney Plus, that, not to say they haven't seen other Marvel properties, but they may not follow it as closely, with people like us that have seen all this stuff, or people like you guys that have seen or read all the comics and know more of the backstory of the characters. So I think episodes like these are definitely crucial. And I thought Catherine Hahn, once again, stole the episode. And we didn't see anyone else. It was really just her and Wanda the entire time. There was no Darcy. There was no Vision. I mean, there was, but not, real life, real-time Vision, so to speak. They were the only ones in this episode, and they did a great job, I think, of, like you said, Phil, filling in the blanks. No pun intended. But what about you, Chris? What were your thoughts on the episode? Was this a filler episode in your opinion, or so much more than that?
No. This, to me, a filler episode is unnecessary, and this was absolutely a necessary episode. It not only gave us a bunch of answers, but it also, it confirmed things we thought we knew. It went in another direction with, the whole reveal that she didn't actually steal Vision's body and just completely remade him from the ground up. Mm-hmm. Just because this wasn't another sitcom episode and it's not the finale doesn't mean it wasn't a necessary episode. It definitely filled in a lot of gaps and gave us information that some people might have guessed, but we don't know if we're right until they tell us, and this show has proven it's wrong how many freaking times now? So
way more than we're right, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I love it so much, because every solution that we've thought could be an answer isn't, but they still managed to come up with something satisfying. So yeah, it's really great. I never saw a single person speculate, I don't think she actually stole Vision's body. Like, I never saw anybody saying that. And the fact that that ends up being what's happening is just another example of how creative this show is with editing, because you look back at that video that Hayward shows them, it never really does show her take the body. So he was very deceptive with that. And
Hayward swerve.
Yeah. Just another piece of evidence that guy not on the level. But I mean, anyone saying it's a filler episode, I imagine, was just really into the sitcom aesthetic of it. Mm-hmm. And this was the most like Marvel-ish feeling thing where, you know, it wasn't a recreation of Dick Van Dyke or anything. It was a lot of magic stuff and just a lot of storytelling. So I'm glad this episode exists, but I can kind of understand why some people might have been let down, but I wasn't. I was like fully engaged the whole time.
Yeah, I kind of figured after last week that we were done with the sitcom stuff, and we technically still kind of got it in this episode, but not with Wanda and Vision. We found out, obviously, that the inspiration behind WandaVision within the MCU is that she grew up watching all these sitcoms, including the Dick Van Dyke Show and Bewitched. We saw those DVDs, which I thought was really, really cool. And I got confused for a second because I know that Wanda and Pietro are very young in the MCU, and I know Agatha made a comment that their old house had like a Cold War feel to it, even though obviously it didn't take place then. Because that scene took place in 2015 when the Ultron stuff happened. Oh, no, I'm sorry, it didn't. It took place when they were kids, and then we catch up with them in Ultron. They have DVDs, though, of all these shows. And so this is my question. I don't know if this was an oversight or if my timeline is messed up. The Malcolm in the Middle show came out in the early 2000s. So do you guys know exactly when that would have been when their parents died? Because how old are they in Age of Ultron exactly?
I think it's implied like they're in their 20s because when they're stuck behind the bomb, they're 10.
Okay. Okay.
So I think it's implied that they're in their 20s in Age of Ultron.
In Age of Ultron. And that takes place in 2015, right? I know that's when it came out, but that's when it takes place as well, I think?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
So that would make sense, because they seem like they were 8 here, and I'm assuming this is like the early 2000s, especially if they have DVDs. I mean, no one had DVD. I mean, I think they were DVDs, or were they VHSs?
No, DVDs, I think.
Yeah, okay. So this must have been at least... Oh, I mean, again, I'm completely nitpicking here, but I was just curious watching the episode. They're probably like 10 here, so maybe 20, 22 when the Age of Ultron stuff happened. It really doesn't matter, but I was just curious. And another thing, too, as someone who's... Oh, go ahead, Chris.
I think they get a little leeway with that because they didn't define what age we were seeing Wanda. Like, I know that at some point they said that the parents died at 10, but even though we know when Elizabeth Olsen was born, have they ever really defined when Wanda was born?
That was my question. I don't know, because like Phil said, I'm pretty sure they're in their 20s, but I mean, she could easily be 21 if they wanted her to be. I mean, I think at the time they filmed that, she was like 24, 25 anyway, so they could probably pass her off being at 21.
So Elizabeth Olsen was born in 89. If Wanda was supposed to be born in 89, then that scene would have been in 1999, which... Yeah, it's a little early for Malcolm in the Middle, but again, it doesn't break the show or anything.
No, of course not, no.
Plus, I mean, that full series of Dick Van Dyke on DVD, who knows when that came out? That probably wasn't released in 1999. That was probably released like 10 years ago.
Yeah, I didn't start collecting DVDs until like at least 05 or something. I was still a VHS person in the early 2000s. So again, it hardly matters, but I was just curious. I wasn't sure if my timeline was off or, again, it's just such
That doesn't surprise me with the fact that you're still like a PS2 guy.
Dude, I still collect DVDs and I still have my PlayStation 2. I actually went out of my way to go get another PS2 a couple of months ago, like a refurbished one. I wouldn't even buy the new systems because I can't play the new systems. I can't. It's not a focus thing. I'm just not capable. I am a simple, like, give me X, Y, and Z on like the Nintendo controller. I can't play the Xbox One or the Xbox 2 or whatever the fuck they're coming out with next. I have no idea. So yeah, I bought a PS2 a couple months ago and I've been playing the old SmackDown versus Raw games on them just for the fuck of it because I can't play the new stuff at all.
Graham is secretly 57 years old.
That's the big revelation on this episode. Another question I had for you, Phil, from Ultron. So didn't Pietro say that the attack happened with the missile and whatever when they were eating dinner? But like on the show here, they were watching the show. Again, slight oversight, and it's nitpicking as hell, but isn't that what he said in the movie?
I don't remember. That's a good question.
I'd have to go back and I thought I remember watching back the interaction that they had with Ultron in the movie when they first meet up with him, Pietro and Wanda. And it sounded like when they were telling the story, Pietro anyway, he said, was like, oh yeah, it was a normal day, we were eating dinner, and then there was a loud exploding sound downstairs or something. And I mean, I don't know if they've shown it here on the show in the recaps. I don't think so. I think I just saw that in another video. So again, doesn't really matter, and his recollection might be vastly different in that maybe they had dinner right before this, but again, doesn't really matter. I'm just trying to clear some stuff up here. But I think a bigger theme of this episode that I think they really fucking nailed, that I thought was great, was the grief stuff. And I think it was one of the better episodes for that stuff alone. Specifically how we see the relationship develop between Wanda and Vision. And again, I know the movies can only cover so much, but like, seriously, in the movies, like in Ultron, in Civil War, and then Infinity War, we don't really get to see a lot of Wanda and Vision. A lot of it is just implied. They kind of bond over making dinner or something. I think that was in Civil War, I'm pretty sure. Or Ultron. I get them mixed up. That was kind of about it, because then when we see them in Infinity War, they're madly in love for 2 years. So, like, I love the fact that we get to see her coping with the death of her brother, and then the Vision scene when he helps her out. And there was that one line that everyone's been sharing since this episode dropped about, I forget if he said grief or love or loss or something, is blah, 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 love persevering. Remember what that line was? I forgot exactly.
I think you said, what is grief if not love persevering?
Okay, yes, that was the line, and that's been shared a lot since yesterday, and I thought that was great. I thought they did an amazing job here of really... I mean, the whole show, I mean, we've said this before, has done an amazing job of making us care way more about Vision than we ever did in any of the movies, I think, unless you're like the biggest Vision fan of the world. But even literally up until that tear-jerking moment at the very end when she had the deed for the house in her hands, and it said... in the middle, it had the heart that Vision wrote, and it said to grow old in, or something along those lines, which was just great. So what were your thoughts on that, Chris? The kind of the development of the relationship here that we see between Wanda and Vision for the first time really in the MCU up to this point.
I thought it was done well, considering they had a very limited amount of time to work with to do those flashbacks. The whole thing with Vision walking through the wall when she like sensed him there kind of brought me back to Civil War when she's like, Viz, we talked about this. Like,
yeah.
When through the wall and Captain America's in the room. So it was funny to see that sort of referenced a little bit. But yeah, they did such a good job just building the chemistry between the two, and it was kind of cool to see Vision show a little bit of personality outside of like the current timeline, because he used to be very level and stoic, and like we actually got to see him laugh when he was watching Malcolm in the Middle with her, which by the way, that like pretty much, does that ruin the chances of Bryan Cranston ever appearing in the MCU? Because there was established that the actor Bryan Cranston exists now. So like, is Mr. Sinister going to show up at some point as Bryan Cranston, and Wanda's going to be like, hey, you look like Walter White. You can't fool me. Like, I don't know. That kind of stuff cracks me up when they do stuff like that. Like, I understand establishing Dick Van Dyke, because it's not like Dick Van Dyke is going to be playing Professor Xavier or anything that. Yeah. But yeah, it'd be hilarious if Bryan Cranston was actually brought in at some point and there was just some minor reference to that fact.
That would be great. I want to see Bryan Cranston in the show at this point after having... He's canon now. Malcolm in the Middle is now canon in the MCU, and that was the biggest takeaway from this episode for me. And maybe they just bring him in as Bryan Cranston, like at some point, and I don't know, maybe Wanda gets to meet him and say that she's like his biggest fan or something. I don't know, but I think that'd be amazing. Kind of like when Ego turned into David Hasselhoff in Guardians 2, and he was just himself. So maybe Bryan can be in the MCU as just himself or something. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, that was such a fun thing for them to do that with David Hasselhoff. Like, I could totally see something like that working. That was hilarious.
It was, and you said it yourself a couple weeks ago, Chris, that literally everyone at some point will end up in the MCU in one role or another, so it wouldn't shock me. Maybe enough time will pass where they'll, like, forget about it or something. I don't know, but it would be pretty cool to get Bryan Cranston in the MCU. What about you, Phil? What were your thoughts on kind of the theme of grief and how they kind of hit upon it on this episode?
So, again, with Age of Ultron so fresh in my mind, there's certain things with their relationship that I think they very intentionally did. Like, I've always interpreted the scene where Thor comes down and smashes the island, and the island is about to blow up. Well, not the island, but what's left of Sokovia. And in that very brief moment, like, Wanda's like floating off the ground, and I think she's looking around like, this is it, I'm gonna die. And I think she's accepting it, like, I'm gonna be with Pietro, I'm accepting it. And then out of nowhere, Vision just saved her. And I think that's been kind of like the backbone of their relationship in a lot of ways. It's been kind of like she has been, I don't want to just immediately say ready to give up, but she's been so, guilt-stricken for a long time, and he's been kind of a saving grace in a lot of ways. And none of the other Avengers have done that for her. I mean, she has a relationship with Clint, but none of them have checked up on her, and I think that was very clear in this episode as well.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of... It's amazing that they made everyone look honestly so bad that no one bothered to check up on this girl, knowing what her backstory... Actually, yeah, they know her backstory. I was going to say they shared the backstory with Ultron, but like everyone in S.W.O.R.D. on this episode knows what went down with her and her family and how they died and whatever, and the fact they were stranded there for 2 days. And I guess no one in the Avengers just really... Maybe because they all have their own like issues, they're like, oh, no one's issues or anyone's bigger than anyone else's, I guess. But yeah, honestly, Vision's like the only one who gave a shit. So sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, well, that shows what her age difference kind of shows. Like, I would say, like, she is an outsider, not just because of how she joined the team and the fact that she's from Sokovia, but she's younger than everybody else on the team.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. So that age difference, yeah, that's a good point. That's probably what the factor is there. But no, it makes a big difference. And I was thinking about, like, we were discussing Wanda's age and whatever. Vision, technically, he doesn't have an age, right? He just exists, so it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter how old he is, I guess, right?
I mean, he was technically built on a specific day, right?
He's technically 6 years old, I guess.
I guess, yeah, so he's underage, but hey, we'll just put that aside. It's not a big deal. Another question I had for you guys, again, in terms of clarification, because I just had a lot of questions coming out of the episode. I thought Wanda got all of her powers from the Mind Stone, and unless I missed something and they already established that she didn't, it looked like that she already had powers, obviously, when she was a kid, when she was using her powers after the attack happened. So can you guys shine some light on that in terms of, like, did she have powers the entire time? The Mind Stone just made it, kind of amplified them? Because I think Agatha referenced that. She's like, oh, you always had it, but you were just lost until you were found by the Mind Stone, or something along those lines. Can you guys shed some light on that?
Well, I mean, of course everybody's gonna go, this is our hint that the X gene exists, and the Mind Stone just activated her dormant X gene. That's what a lot of people are gonna guess, and that's probably a fair theory. I'm not sure what to make of that. I'm not sure if Agatha was basically saying, no, you were already like adept at magic and you just didn't know it yet. And the Mind Stone just gave you like the other powers, like telepathy and telekinesis.
What about you, Chris? What was your analysis of that?
I don't know. I was kind of confused because they show her like reach out towards the bomb, and then Agatha sort of pulls her out of the memory. And she goes, what did you do? How did you stop it? Did you use a probability hex? And Wanda goes, the bomb was defective.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I was trying to think, like, was it defective because of what you did, or was it defective because it was defective? Like, it was kind of almost left up to interpretation, but it does feel like they're saying that the Mind Stone chose her for something, because, I mean, you see that scene where it's like she kind of sees a vision of her future self in like the glow of the stone.
Yeah.
And then she's just like knocked out instantly or something. And I don't know. It made me also wonder, like, how much of the vision being attracted to her has to do with the Mind Stone having picked her.
That's
a good point.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't really realize the
There's been a connection between the Mind Stone and her, and now therefore Vision, since the start. So, I mean, you know, they probably definitely love each other, but it seems like they're almost saying that might have been
like the catalyst for it.
Yeah, like, I'm not saying like she's attracted to the Mind Stone more than she Vision. Like, she obviously cares about Vision, but I'm wondering if maybe the reason an android was all of a sudden attracted to a human female had to do with the fact that the thing powering him also powered her.
Yeah, no, actually, that's a great point. I haven't seen a lot of people talk about that. It's kind of gone unnoticed so far. But yeah, no, I'm sure that's definitely a factor. I'm interested to see if that's just going to be implied or if they actually reference that at some point. But that would seem to make sense. You brought up earlier, Chris, how they kind of made it seem with the previews and everything else of this show that Wanda was the one who took Vision's body and then resurrected it in the show and whatever. We obviously find out in this episode that was not the case. Did Hayward, again, maybe it was just implied and I missed it or it just went completely over my head, but was it implied that he manipulated Wanda to do what she did by talking to her the way that he did, just so he can kind of have her reactivate his body? Because she used like her powers on him or something at that point on like his pieces that were all over the place. Did he manipulate her in that scene? What are your thoughts, Chris?
I do think that was very intentional, him telling her, like, you know, you have the power to bring him back online. But I think to him, he was hoping that she would have some kind of reaction to the actual body. I don't know if he necessarily thought she could create a new Vision from the ground up. What's even stranger about all this is that even though this establishes that the Vision inside the Hex, like, isn't the original Vision and that it's completely her creation, he's still technically made of vibranium.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like he's just, because they were tracking the vibranium decay signature to find him. So it's not like he's just a construct of, you know, magic powers. Like, she actually created another vibranium body. So I almost get the feeling that something's going to happen with, like, the Vision personality and the White Vision body. And, like, I have a feeling that this isn't going to be the end of Vision in the MCU, even though the idea of the end of the show being that she has to deal with her grief was a nice idea at the beginning. I think the fact that they're now bringing in the White Vision and we could potentially see the two merge, or, like, you know, part of Wanda's vision get put into him, it just opens the door for Paul Bettany to stay around. But it'll be interesting to see if they go the route in the comics where, like, the White Vision is just completely emotionless and doesn't love Wanda.
That's what I'm getting out of this. Yeah,
I don't know. It's really weird. I mean, so many things are just slightly different from how they went in the comics that you never quite know what they're going to do.
That's the best part about it. It just leaves us guessing, which is why we're talking about it right now. So a couple questions for you, Phil, kind of going off of what Chris has said now that we're kind of getting into that, the White Vision post-credit scene from this episode. One, your thoughts on Hayward maybe or maybe not manipulating Wanda to kind of bring Vision back online, intentionally, but without actually explicitly saying that. And two, your thoughts on the White Vision stuff and where it might be going.
So straight away, Hayward's a horrible person.
Yeah.
Bringing someone in to see their loved one in pieces is horrible. A horrible thing to do. So that in itself is horrible. I definitely think he was trying to see if he could goad her into doing something. And that was our other, nod to their relationship, her coming in and saying, I can't feel you. Because in Infinity War, when they were together and she put her hand over the stone, she said, I only feel you. And so even when she had to kill him at the end of the movie, she was like, I feel you. And so at this, she was like, I can't feel you anymore. And she left, which again, that just was a horrible thing to do to her. But I think it was just a coincidence. He had the footage of her walking in to the room with the body, and he just used that to give Monica and the others half of the information.
Yeah.
And as far as White Vision goes, very stoked to see him on the show. That is my favorite Vision look from the comic. I've always preferred the white costume. So I'm really stoked that he's in the show. I'm assuming that he's sentient, but he is not going to have any memories of Wanda or anything. Kind of like when White Vision came back in the comic. I noticed when she kind of spit out the hex and created the hex when she was standing in the empty lot for the house. It looked like she spit out Jarvis's mainframe, right? Because that's how it looks in Age of Ultron, like the yellow framework.
Oh, right, yeah.
It looked like she spit out Jarvis's mainframe when she did that. So I was like, I wonder, is this really Jarvis in this version of Vision that's in the hex or not? Or if it's just a construct she created.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't really think about that. But there's a lot of different ways they can go with this. And I agree with you guys that I think with White Vision, it'll probably be the emotionless one. Just because we already have another Vision that knows Wanda, loves Wanda, but doesn't know how he died and isn't aware of any of that stuff. So I feel like if we just have another version of that, it wouldn't be all that interesting. So having a Vision where he doesn't give a shit about Wanda at all, but maybe knows who she is, I think would be a little more interesting, especially if... how many times does she have to kill this guy? I mean, she already killed Vision once. Is she going to have to kill him again and then maybe deal with the grief of losing the other Vision? I feel like this is going to be a recurring theme with Wanda. It's just she's already been through so much. It's just amazing. But yeah, I agree. Hayward's an asshole. Did they say at one point a couple of episodes ago when he was explaining the whole Wanda thing and the hex to the rest of the Sword Agents, did he say that Wanda took the body or did we just imply that?
No, he definitely said she took it.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
He straight up lied to everybody to frame her. And, I was giving him the benefit of the doubt at some points because, let's be honest, when you're in that position, somebody does something as crazy as what Wanda's doing, the first solution, if you can't contact that person and negotiate, is probably going to be to try to kill them.
Yeah.
The fact that it took him as long as it did to go that route shows restraint. But this episode confirmed to me that he's not a good guy. He might not be an out and out villain. He might not be Mephisto in disguise like some people think. He might not be Nightmare, whatever people are guessing. But he's not even Nick Fury, which is grade chaotic neutral. Nick Fury's not a great person either, but at least he has good instincts and usually has people's best interests in mind, whereas Hayward seems very, worried about the bottom line. And granted, all that could be shaped by the fact that he had to deal with a broken sword organization for 5 years and try to keep it afloat. I'm sure he went through some shit going through all that crap, so he probably just has a jaded view of things right now. But yeah, it seemed like he manipulated her for sure, and the result was just unexpected. He didn't expect her to go enslave an entire town for her sitcom fantasy.
Yeah.
He probably just assumed, oh, maybe, the power inside you can power him again. And he was right, technically, because he powered that White Vision off of the magic from her leaving it on the drone.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was in his head? Was there anything where the Mind Stone was? Like, all I saw was a little blue shimmer.
No, there was no stone.
Okay.
Yeah, but see, this also raises questions too. If he was trying to rebuild Vision, was he also trying to build other weapons and trying to recreate any of the other Avengers? Because, I mean, we already know that they've announced Armor Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible that he's also been trying to, recreate Stark tech while Stark is gone, or trying to recreate the super soldier serum? Because we know John Walker is going to show up in the Captain Falcon show.
Mm-hmm.
So I would assume he's doing other things to recreate the Avengers, or at least create some kind of defense while they were gone.
Yeah.
Does this confirm, so if he lied to them about that, does this confirm that he lied to Monica too about the whole space thing? Like, oh, your mom wouldn't want you to go up there or something like that. If you ever came back, then she wouldn't want you to go up to space. Does that basically confirm that he lied about that too?
Yeah, I mean, everything he said is open game at this point now. You don't know what he's telling the truth about, if he has been proven to be a liar about other things. It's just other things that makes him look sneaky. I mean, I kind of figured when he kind of threw Monica's mother's death in her face in that episode, I was like, yeah, this guy's just not a good guy.
Yeah, we got douche chills at that point. So that kind of gave it away from the get go. Another question I had for you guys was that, so this is 5 years, obviously, after Infinity War, with the blip happening and everyone's back, blah, 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 blah. Hayward had obviously been there. He didn't get blipped away because he was in charge of S.W.O.R.D. that entire time, or for most of the time. Why only now are they taking apart Vision's body, as opposed to, like, years earlier? Like, I was wondering why then, as opposed to, like, much earlier than that.
I mean, he's made of vibranium, which they've established is like the toughest substance on Earth.
Okay.
It may have taken them a long time just to figure out how to actually dismantle him.
Mm-hmm.
But it did also feel just conveniently timed that, like maybe he got some kind of heads up that she was on her way and
maybe, yeah,
decided to stage this thing in order to get the biggest possible emotional reaction out of her. Who knows?
I felt that way too, because it just felt like it was way too convenient for them to be. I mean, again, that's a typical TV movie trope or whatever, so I'm not really bothered by that. But like the fact that they just let her in with ease. They're just like, oh yeah, go right in, like whatever. Like she had no backup with her or anything. She just I know she obviously busted the door down herself. But like other than that, they just kind of like let her walk right in. No one was shocked to really see her there. I mean, people were like looking at her weird, but other than that, it was just a really weird thing. Like, she could just go right in and talk to, like, the director of S.W.O.R.D. Like, there's no issue there. Like, it was just really bizarre. So I'm not even saying all of S.W.O.R.D. is bad. It's just, like, him specifically, we know he's questionable. But it really felt like they staged the whole thing.
He's also not stupid, though. He knows how powerful Wanda is. If Monica knows that she almost single-handedly killed Thanos, then Hayward does. And Hayward doesn't want Wanda pissed at him, at least not at that point. So I imagine that at least had a little bit to do with his willingness to see her.
I feel like that was actually part of it. I feel like he did want to get her angry to the point where, like, she did something dumb so he could frame her as, like, the terrorist that he ends up calling her, in this show. Because, again, like Phil said earlier, like, he said a lot of shit to her. He was like, yeah, you know what? That body's ours, actually. Like, she's like, oh, I'm the next of kin or something. He's like, you know what? No, we own the body, so, like, sorry. Like, we could do whatever we want with it, pretty much. Like, who the fuck says that? Like, he clearly said that just to piss her off, so she would do something dumb. I mean, the only thing she really did was break the glass. But I thought she was going to, like, go on a rampage or something, which is probably, honestly, what he was hoping for, just so he would have a reason to go off on her. And I don't know why. I don't know what his agenda against her would be, because they already have the body at that point. I don't know, because that was like pre-Hex and whatever, but I just thought that was interesting.
Well, he doesn't... Do we have any confirmation on when they got the body? Because it would make sense that they just started trying to dissect it at that point if they didn't get the body until the Avengers brought it back from Wakanda.
Maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say, did the Wakandan government give it to him? Because he died in Wakandan soil.
Yeah, I don't see Wakanda working with him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So maybe Cap brought him back or something. Who knows? But man,
yeah, Cap's another. I don't see Cap working with Sword after everything he went through with Shield.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, it's one of those things. Weird. I don't know if they'll explain it or not.
So, but this episode still didn't give us, like, somebody recently said, like, stay tuned. The aerospace engineer thing is still going to pay off.
I guess so.
But we didn't get that. We didn't get anything about, like, what did Pietro do to Monica or what happened with them. We don't know what happened to Darcy. We haven't seen Vision. Like, there were so many things that I was kind of hoping they would address in this episode that they didn't. That, like, I'm thinking the finale is going to have to be at least a double episode because they have a lot of shit to cover still.
That was my question for you guys. So I had seen this morning from a pretty reliable source, that Twitter account at MCU Direct, and they're right usually more often than not. They revealed this morning, as of Saturday, that the finale is only going to be 50 minutes. That seems like it's way too short for the amount of stuff they seem like they would have to address.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there was rumors that, like, episode 7, 8, and 9 were all going to be an hour long, and that's obviously proven to be false.
Yeah.
It's up in the air right now. I mean, if it was at least a double episode, I would be happy, but it wouldn't surprise me if they could cram enough into that 50 minutes because they want to leave some things probably for the Doctor Strange movie or the Spider-Man movie or whatever they plan on tying this into. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. There's a lot they need to unpack, but Kevin Feige did recently say, like, I'm glad people are really interested in Monica because she's a big part of Captain Marvel too, and that movie will explore her relationship with Carol Danvers. So, like, the fact that Monica is just barely getting her powers and we're not going to see that developed a ton on this show leaves all that open for the Captain Marvel movie to address. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that they can hold off on in this. Like, we don't need to get a big full Monica story anymore. Like, just the tease of her powers is enough to get me interested in Captain Marvel, which is saying something because I wasn't a huge fan of the first movie.
Yeah, same here. I remember you, I, and Rob already discussed our thoughts on that one, why it was one of the weaker movies we've seen. Probably, I think the Howard the Duck review at some point is going to be more entertaining than that one.
I mean, let's face it, Howard the Duck was almost more entertaining than Captain Marvel. It
was. Oh, I mean, I haven't seen the movie, but I can almost guarantee that.
That's unfair. Like, I do like the movie. It's just so middle of the road. Like, they repeated so many notes from other origin stories. I really don't like what the director was having Brie Larson do because, she's this big emotional hothead, but you never show that to us. Like,
yeah,
the movie sent mixed messages about the character, and I really want the next movie to redeem it. But the fact that Monica is supposed to be a big part of it already makes me happy because I've loved her character on this show so much.
Yeah, I agree. No, I think she's been great, and I think they will. I think with that movie, I mean, we've already discussed this, but, like, in a nutshell, I think it's because all the other movies are they're good to great to amazing, that I think people's expectations are so high for each and every installment in the MCU, where it was so middle of the road, but by MCU standards, it just wasn't good compared to everything else. It was like the AEW All Out 2020 show of the MCU. And then it was, like, decent, but, like, compared to all the other pay-per-views, it wasn't very good at all, so...
like, if it had come out 5 years earlier, people would have loved it.
If Infinity War came out 5 years earlier?
No, if Captain Marvel had come out 5 years before it did.
Oh, gotcha.
And it didn't have all these other epic Marvel movies in those 5 years to contend with. Like, if it was an early MCU movie with Iron Man and Cap 1 and Hulk, people would have loved it. But it came after they had already done so many of the things they tried to do in that movie that it just felt unnecessary.
Yeah, it just felt like they forced it right before Endgame, because they're like, all right, we got to get this movie in there, we got to introduce her, we got to make this make sense for when she shows up in this movie, blah, blah, blah. So, it just felt very forced. But again, like you said, with more time, hopefully the sequel will be better. But I had another question for you guys, going back to the White Vision stuff, because I had seen someone speculate this. I had seen people talking about this even before the White Vision reveal on this episode. I'll start with you, Phil, because again, we've been talking about Ultron. Could White Vision have the James Spader Ultron voice? Could that be how they get him back online, is by using Ultron somehow, since they don't have the Mind Stone?
That's very interesting. I mean, I definitely think Ultron is going to come into play in some way in this last episode.
Okay.
I'm almost sure of it at this point. Like, it's just too much reference in the Age of Ultron. There's too much referencing to that kind of Stark tech, and like even when we saw Vision's mind, so to speak, to call for a lack of better words, come out of Wanda, it just all reminded me of that same stuff from Age of Ultron. So I'd be really surprised if they don't go back to him in any way.
What about you, Chris? Would you want to see Ultron back, maybe as White Vision or just in general? Again, I know we've talked about this before, but it feels more relevant now that we have White Vision, and maybe that's how they bring him back.
I mean, it would be cool, but I'm still just wondering, like, who the hell is this Luke Skywalker level cameo? And I'm trying to think, like, would Paul Bettany have been a huge James Spader fan when he was a boy?
Well, he already worked with him.
Yeah.
Well, oh, that's true.
That's what I was thinking, the same thing, and then I'm like, oh wait, no, they were in the same movie together. That's how they were both introduced.
But were they ever in the same room?
Yes, like, they fought, right? Remember they fought?
No. I mean, like, the actors. Like, what Spader only did a little bit of green screen stuff, but most of his shit was recorded in a booth. Like,
yeah.
I'm almost wondering if they brought Spader in this time to actually stand in the mocap suit, and maybe that's why Bettany would be excited to work with him. But I was also thinking about it, like, so when Bettany was younger, what would Spader have been known for? Pretty much, was it Night Court? Was that the thing he was on?
Yeah. But like, see, I don't know, man.
I also heard a hilarious theory thrown out. Somebody thought Paul Bettany was completely fucking with us.
Oh, he is.
That the actor he's wanted to work with since he was a boy is himself. Because we're going to get Bettany versus Bettany.
That's what I was going to say. That's what everyone's been saying.
If that's the case, he's the best troll ever.
I honestly, dude, I think that's what it's going to be. That's what I wanted to ask you. I think we might be looking at two different things here, because the Paul Bettany, where he said many, many times, like, oh, I'm so excited to work with this actor. I think that is independent of the Luke Skywalker moment that was referenced by Elizabeth Olsen. I think they're two different things. I still am holding on to the fact that we could get some other big cameo, but it's not the Paul Bettany thing. I think Paul Bettany was absolutely fucking with us, and he was actually talking about himself. Because that is funny, it's disappointing, but I feel like if that's all that it was, then there's going to be a lot of pissed Marvel fans, I feel like, because we're not going to get any big, like, reveal. Although White Vision is cool. So, I don't know.
I won't be one of them. I won't be one of the pissed off fans.
I will be personally.
So hard if that's what he's talking about. But I also want the Luke Skywalker cameo to just straight up be Mark Hamill playing a role.
Oh, I would love that. That would be hilarious. I think that'd be great. The thing is that because the context is key, because I think what some people forget is that when Elizabeth Olsen said that, she didn't say it, the reporter or the interview said it. They said, are we going to get like a Luke Skywalker like level cameo? And she just said yes. So she didn't specifically use the words Luke Skywalker, like the reporter did. And then, like, we've all run with that since then. So it's not like she said, oh, like, we're going to get something like Luke Skywalker. Because if she said that, then I'm like, honestly, Mark Hamill would make a lot of, like, I think that'd be hilarious just to be like, just to get him on the show. But honestly, I think it's Paul Bettany. What are your thoughts, Phil?
I just like the idea of the interviewer asking her that, Elizabeth's just going, yeah, it's gonna be.
And then it's like Doctor Strange or something. That's what I'm worried
everybody's
about.
Just running with it. It's just Doctor Strange or somebody.
Yeah.
I don't think Spader is a cameo. I think they still got an ace up their sleeve that they're not letting us know on. I think it's gonna disappoint people at this point because it's been hyped up so much.
Mm-hmm.
No matter who it is, I think people are going to be disappointed. And I almost felt that way with this episode, and kind of going back to what you said with people thinking it was filler. I think the idea of every time they debunk somebody's theory, they're like, oh, well, what are they doing then? It's like, well, no, they're just not doing what you want them to do. I mean,
Yeah.
I think everybody wanted this to be alternate version of Pietro, and we got confirmation this episode that he's not.
Yeah.
He's just an incantation. He's just an illusion. But I mean, it's still weird that she would pick that Pietro out of everyone.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I mean, he's clearly just an illusion. He's not like the real Pietro from any universe.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because they did acknowledge that on this episode. They did confirm that she even outright said like, "Oh, I couldn't use the actual." Because I'm thinking when I watched this, I'm like, then in that case, why not just use like Aaron Taylor Johnson to make Wanda think like, "Okay, that's your actual brother," because why would you use anyone else? And then she was like, "Well, I can't get to that body because it's on Earth or whatever, and it's all shot up and blah blah blah." So that's why she used this version of Pietro. I think even Kevin Feige had said in another interview recently, in like the last week, that they did that as kind of like a wink and a nod to the fans, but not thinking that they would look into it as much as they did, which, if true, that's complete bullshit. I mean, we're talking about Marvel fans here. We literally read into everything. Chris, I mean, a couple of episodes ago, you were talking about the Voodoo Child song and how you thought that might be, voodoo, or is that what you said?
Brother Voodoo, yeah.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like, I find that bullshit.
Yeah, I thought Simon Williams was going to be involved, and I've never been disappointed with the decisions they've made because, like I've said, I always kind of want it to be something we haven't thought of because that, like, being surprised is always better than being proven right. Like, when it comes to these kinds of shows anyway. And I think that's what initially attracted so many people to, like, Lost back in the day. Like, Lost was one of those shows that they just kept veering left when you thought they were going right. And at a certain point, they overdid it, and people jumped off the Lost boat. But, yeah, with this show, like, I've never not been happy with the decision that they've made from a storytelling standpoint, just because I've seen so few of them coming.
I completely agree, and I think predictability isn't always a bad thing, but if they turn, like you said, they go right instead of left as we expect them to, and it's something that makes us happy. I think Marvel has built up enough goodwill with these movies that I have faith that they'll have like a satisfying ending, unlike almost anything else really, like whether it be a DC or whatever. Like, this isn't like Vince Russo booking where they do a swerve for the sake of a swerve or some shit like that. Like, this is, I don't know, I feel like if they're going to do a swerve, it's going to be something that either makes sense or it's something that we're happy with. So I still think that they have an ace up their sleeve, like you said, Phil, in that. Again, I think the Paul Bettany thing is 100% a troll just because it's funny. If that's all that it is and we don't get anyone else on this next episode, I will be a little disappointed, but I think there's got to be something. I don't know. I feel like Marvel wouldn't do that, especially with all the momentum the show has. So we'll see. There's so many different ways that this thing can go down. But a couple more questions. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, we haven't even discussed the fact that we got to see Agatha's origin a little bit.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. That was my next question for you guys about the whole, she said Scarlet Witch. She called her that at the end of the episode. But before that, they had the covenant with Agatha, and she killed everybody with her powers in Salem, Massachusetts in the late 1600s. I thought that was great. What were your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, I just thought there were some interesting choices made in that scene, because when they all start, hitting her with their blue magic, and then her purple magic sort of reverses the spell and sucks the life force out of them, it not only looked like Agatha was kind of surprised that was happening, but that she wasn't, she didn't seem overly happy about it. Like, she definitely purposely killed her own mother, but I don't think she was, fully evil. I think she was just experimenting with magic from the Dark Dimension, which is another thing. The magic in the Dark Dimension had a purple color whenever Dormammu was, shooting it at Doctor Strange in all those different ways that he was trying to kill him at the end of the movie. So I think they're pretty much establishing that, the reason she was so much more powerful is because she's connected to the Dark Dimension in some way, which, I mean, Dormammu, for all we know, could be involved. What if what if the way he gets around the deal he made with Doctor Strange is by working with Agatha?
Ooh. Okay.
So he brings her to the dark dimension, empowers her, and then says, "Go do my fucking bidding." And she goes and does his bidding. But it's funny because the end of the episode immediately switched that to where Agatha is now the person being like, "You have magic that is too powerful, and I need to kill you because of it." Like, she's now taken the role that her mother and all those witches had, and I'm not even sure she realizes that at this point. So I kind of think that they might be setting up a possibility where Agatha can be either talked down, or maybe Wanda convinces her, like, "Hey, you're right, my magic is dangerous, why don't you train me?"
So that's what I was wondering. So, like, is that her main motivation? I know she kind of referenced it, but is that her main motivation for going after Wanda, is that she wants to kill her off because she's too powerful, or does she want to, like, manipulate her into being kind of like her Agatha?
Yeah, I think her statement about being drawn to Westview just because of all the residual magic from all these spells being cast at once was probably true. Mm-hmm. I don't know if her intentions are necessarily as evil as they've appeared so far.
Okay.
I don't know. I just feel like they're not going to fully make her a big bad, even though she's done some bad shit. So has Wanda. So. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Yeah. I'm really curious to see what they do with her character, because I don't want them to kill her off. That's for sure. Like, if Catherine Hahn is not in the MCU after this show, I'm going to be very upset because she's been so good.
She's been great. Is this the pathway, you think, to making them kind of like a tag team and making them the two-woman power trip of the MCU in Doctor Strange too?
I mean, I'd be so happy if Catherine Hahn was also in Doctor Strange.
I think that'd be great. What are your thoughts, Phil, on the whole Agatha thing on this episode?
I think this episode confirmed for me that Hayward is the big bad of the show, mm-hmm. and Agatha is not. And it seemed like to me in the clip that we got before the show started of her killing the Coven of Witches, it really felt like she was just defending herself. It didn't seem like she would have killed them if they would have just let her go.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think there was the same thing with her mother. I think she was just forced to kill her because, her mother wasn't going to back down. The thing that I thought was very interesting about that scene is when they were alone and she tried to kill Agatha again, that crown appeared on her head. And I was like, that looks a lot like Enchantress's crown. I mean, it looks a lot like it. I mean, like, I even paused it a few times to see if I was just picking at straws, but I was like, no, it looks a lot like Enchantress's crown.
Are you talking about the Asgardian Enchantress?
Yes.
Right. So, do you think they'll use that character again just because she was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
I don't know. I mean, they've been pretty much, like, kind of using things from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and kind of not. Like, it doesn't seem like they're saying it's canon, but they're leaving the possibility open. It's weird. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. will be revealed as having been a multiverse version of everything.
I don't know. But, yeah, I definitely think that... Because Agatha's not a villain in the comics. She's Wanda's mentor. And she's like the Fantastic Four's nanny at one point. So she's not a villain in the comics. So I can see her being a reoccurring character. And everything in this episode, it very much felt like she was like, okay, you don't know how to do this. You don't know this spell either. You don't know protection spells. Like, how are you doing any of this then? Mm-hmm. So I think she just is. I think when you get like the clip of it's Agatha all along, which I love, is basically like a riff off of Monsters.
Yeah.
It seemed like she was doing that because she assumed that Wanda was more in control than she really is. And I think in this episode, she kind of figured out like, oh, you really don't know a lot of anything. Like, you don't really know any of the arts. You're just doing this off raw power. And so at the end of the episode, when she was outside and she was holding the twins. I don't think she would let the twins out of the basement and take Wanda out of the basement where the protection spell is if she wasn't going to, like, trying to talk Wanda down and go, like, figure out something. Because I don't think this is just a, ha-ha, I have your kids. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Because I mean, she's out of the basement now, so she has control of her powers again now. So it's not like she could just stop her from doing anything. At this point, Wanda could very easily overpower her.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, it is funny that she would choose to take Wanda outside of the area that she already proved was like, I can suppress your magic here with these runes. And I almost was like, are they establishing that so, like, Wanda remembers it and then does that to her later? Like, maybe that's how she depowers Agnes for a few minutes or something at some point. But I don't know. I don't think... I'm with Phil on this. I don't think Agatha is fully a villain. Mm-hmm. And I do think that the fact that they made such a big point out of showing her not only asking the Coven to teach her, but just saying to her mother, like, I can be good.
Yeah.
And her mother's like, no, you can't. And just, you know, it goes from there. It's like, I really do think we're going to get a specific scene that calls back to that with her ready to kill Wanda and Wanda saying, like, I want to be good, you know, like, can you teach me? And it's gonna like, it's break through to her a little bit, because she's gonna be like, wow, I can't do the same thing that all those women tried to do to me back then.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Plus,
I could totally see
it also
that.
feels like this show would be ballsy enough to have a completely non-violent solution, because Marvel always goes to the either kill the bad guy or beat him up. Like,
yeah,
this show is so creative and so different that actually having a peaceful solution where nobody dies at the end is very possible, and it would almost be more satisfying than just a big battle with a bunch of magic lasers getting shot left and right.
Can we at least kill Hayward?
See,
yeah, maybe White Vision will turn on his creator.
That's all I ask.
And see, I think that's where people are going to be disappointed next episode, because I don't think this show is built to have finality. And I think they are going to leave a lot of threads open, because that was the whole point of this thing, to build towards other shows and build towards other movies.
Yeah.
I don't think any of the Disney Plus shows are like, here we're going to have season finales where you get a conclusive end to, you know, this plot point. You're going to get an ending to the Westview stuff, but I think they're going to leave a lot of stuff with Wanda open to be continued in Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, kind of on that same note, going off that, Phil, I'll start with you. Final predictions for next week's season finale. What do you think we're going to get? What happens to the kids? Vision, Hayward, White Vision, Wanda herself, Agatha? What do you think's going down next week?
Well, I think I have been predicting that Vision is dead this whole time. I still think he's basically dead, but I do think they're going to give us a semblance of a happy ending with Vision, now that we know that there is a physical body outside of the Hex that he could jump to. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's necessarily exactly where they're going to go, but I think Vision is still going to exist after the show is over in some form. As far as Hayward, I don't think Hayward's going anywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if he is like either the big bad in another show, or he's gonna make reoccurring appearances in other shows and movies as in some way, because he's just doing too much at this point. I don't think that this guy would go into this without like a backup plan.
Yeah. No, I get that sense too.
And so I think he's going to be still around. I think all of this is to, you know, set their pieces on the board for a lot of other things in this phase. I definitely could see at the end of this Agatha taking on Wanda as a student and them taking down the Hex completely. Now, how do we get to the Hex being taken down? I don't know. But I did watch Doctor Strange this weekend as well, and I don't know. I would absolutely love if the Hex just comes crashing down and Mordo walks in and just says, the bill always comes due. That would be amazing.
Oh, that would be great. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Mordo already. I would love it if he showed up.
Yeah. I think that'd be a great post-credit scene, honestly. That's what it screams to me.
I mean, if Agatha came there because she sensed all of that, magic, Mordo would have a lot of interest in that as someone who was trying to get rid of all of the other sorcerers.
Yeah, especially as someone who's been waiting around literally for like 7 years now doing absolutely nothing. So he's got to have something to do,
I'm sure he's been killing people and we don't know about it.
Yeah. We probably just haven't heard about it. He's just been waiting around in the background. But, yeah, no, definitely. I think a Mordo post-credit scene would be really fucking cool. And, yeah, that second Doctor Strange movie is shaping up to be pretty sick. Do we know when that's coming out? Is that next year? Do you guys know?
I'm not sure.
I thought, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I know it was supposed to come out this year originally, right? But it got pushed back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would make sense.
I mean, everything's... But we still got Black Widow and the Eternals, which, are pegged for this year, but who knows?
Yeah.
All this stuff is in flux right now, and that may affect some of the shows, too, depending on how they want to tell those stories and what order, because we got to remember, WandaVision wasn't even supposed to be the first show we got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's actually kind of cool that this kicked it off instead, because it's just... I'm sure Falcon and the Winter Soldier is going to be great. Don't get me wrong, just for different reasons, but this seems like a more appropriate show to kick off Phase 4 with, so it's been awesome. And I'm going to miss it after it's over next week, even though we get Falcon and the Winter Soldier like 2 weeks later, so we're not going to be without Marvel content for long. But bonus question for you guys before we ride off into the sunset here, that being that we got the announcement this past week, Spider-Man 3 coming out on Christmas. Again, tentatively. So I'm a little surprised they're actually committing to that, just because we've heard literally nothing about Black Widow, and it's supposed to come out in like 2 or 3 months. Heard nothing about it, and that's supposed to be out in May, I think. Eternals, I thought was pegged for November. Again, don't know. I've heard nothing about it. But we already got our first teaser trailer for Spider-Man 3 on Christmas. And that's just, 8-9 months away. And it's going to be called No Way Home. So they teased all the other titles from the other cast members on the day before. No Way Home is what it's going to be. I immediately had No Way Out flashbacks from WWE, but it's No Way Home instead. Phil, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the new Spider-Man sequel title, and what do you think we're getting out of this one?
Would I be surprised if that's not the real title? I would not be surprised. I mean, they threw out other fake titles. I wouldn't be surprised if this is also not the real title. No Way Home tells me several things. I mean, of course, this is Spider-Man on a run after we know what happened at the end of the last Spider-Man movie. Mm-hmm. But Tom is, he's protesting an awful lot. Like, Toby's not in the movie, guys. Andrew's not in the movie. I don't know if I believe you, Tom.
Yeah.
No, he's trying to make up for all the times he legitimately spoiled things.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I love that. I was just going to say, I love that he said that they won't let him watch Black Widow yet.
No, that's funny.
Right? Yeah, but he was so careful with the way he phrased the thing about Toby. He's like, if Marvel Studios could keep that secret from me, I'd be surprised. It's like...
I mean, they would have to share screen time at some point in the movie, wouldn't they? So you would think that... I mean, I don't know. I mean, let's say in the universe, like, they filmed his scenes without Tom knowing, which is possible, but wouldn't they have to interact, at least with the Andrew Garfield one? At least for one scene, I would think.
I don't know. Maybe it's a Gwyneth Paltrow situation, and, like... They just filmed their stuff all separately, and they were on green screens, and they just sort of combined it together.
Maybe?
But, yeah. I don't know. Like... That stuff got so hyped up, and it was nothing but rumors. There was never a confirmation that Garfield or Maguire would be used in these movies or in the MCU. So maybe people got their hopes up, but it wouldn't shock me if something was done to bring in those characters, whether it was for a glorified cameo or the entire movie. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to the movie. I definitely want to see what they do with this whole J. Jonah Jameson has revealed his identity to the world thing now. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot of precedent for what they could do with that kind of story, because there has been a few times where Spider-Man's identity has gotten out, and he's done some weird shit to, like, fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, didn't he make a deal with the devil one time, Phil? Like, he literally made a deal with the devil to make everybody forget, but, like, in exchange, Mary Jane had to completely forget about him or something like that.
He gave up his marriage to Mary Jane so that he could make his identity a secret again and bring Aunt May back to life, because Aunt May got killed when...
That's right.
Well, Kingpin had his aunt killed when he found out who he was. And then we had this awesome comic where Peter goes to prison and beats the ever-living shit out of Kingpin. It's if you haven't read it, it's great. He puts on the black suit again, and it's just like a cloth black suit. It's not like the actual symbiote. But he puts on a black suit and he goes and finds out that his Kingpin, breaks into prison and takes off his mask and it's like, no need to hide myself, takes off his mask, takes off his shirt, and just wallops him. I mean, it's doing stuff like using his web crawling, his wall crawling power to rip his skin off. Mm-hmm. It's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah. I mean, Spider-Man's one of those characters that they've always established is super powerful and just chooses to be as, like, non-violent as possible. So those rare moments when he freaks out and actually goes after somebody, like, he could be a very dangerous person. Like, look how easily he overpowered Bucky in Civil War.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's like, oh, you have a metal arm? That's awesome. But he's, like, literally holding off a dude with superhero or super soldier serum.
Yeah.
And then Cap collapses a goddamn catwalk thing from the airport, and he's holding it up just on his shoulders. I mean, yeah, Spider-Man is an incredibly strong hero who's just not often portrayed as being super strong for the sake of strength, because that's not his fighting style.
Yeah.
But, like, dude could lift a car and throw it at you if he wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, that's how Aunt May gets killed. Is I think a sniper shoots her because they're staying in a hotel. So a sniper shoots him, and he just hurls a car at the guy.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Jesus. Do you think that would be adapted into the MCU at some point?
I if they are ballsy enough to kill Marissa Tomei, that would be crazy.
The backlash on Twitter would be unreal.
Happy's gonna be so upset.
You'll be heartbroken. He and Wanda can go to therapy together.
If the next Spider-Man movie does not have, like, Happy Hogan and her, like, engaged or something, I'm going to be mad. You can't set up Jon Favreau and Marissa Tomei and then not pay that off.
I know. That was such a big part of the last one. There's no way they don't continue that with the next one. That was great.
Yeah, at least a little bit.
At least a little bit, yeah. Now, I would love to see, like, one of the opening... Like, I could see one of the opening scenes of that movie being Happy and Aunt May on, like, a date or something, and that's when Peter, like, they're on a date when this happens, like when the news breaks that his identity gets revealed to the world, and then he, like, calls them frantically or something like that, like, I need your help, like, right now. They're like, no, I'm on a date, like, I'm trying to, you know, are they officially like boyfriend girlfriend at the end of Far From Home, or is it just like they like each other?
Wasn't the joke that Happy was more into her than she was into him, and she just saw it as a fling, but he was, like, all into her?
Oh, right, yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah,
funny.
I think she literally called it, like, a summer fling, and he's just like, what? You feel so bad for him in that moment.
I love it. That's perfect.
This poor Happy, he lost his best friend, and now he might not have this girl. And
give Happy a chance, damn it. Give him a chance.
One of the things I saw, it was, I think it was Spider-Man Far From Home, those honest trailers.
Oh, yeah.
They do on YouTube. Mm-hmm. That one of those, there's a montage of, like, every time somebody has hit on Marissa Tomei's character in the MCU, and it's like 7 or 8 scenes. It's like, Jesus, Aunt May can get it in the MCU. Huh?
That's so funny. That's great. No, she's awesome. So I guess we'll see. Whoever were to kill her, if it was Kingpin or something like that, they would get major heel heat from me and probably everyone else, the rest of the Marvel fans. So we'll see if they're actually ballsy enough to do it, like you said, Phil. But I think so.
I think somebody's definitely dying. I would say that. We've gone 2 Spider-Man movies without none of his supporting cast dying.
True.
Somebody's going to die.
True. That's a good
And
question.
we've never even gone about Uncle Ben's death, so somebody's gonna die.
Yeah.
It's inevitable.
Even his villains don't really die. Like, I don't think they never really confirmed that Gyllenhaal's character is dead, right? Like, he got shot.
I mean, they did, but they didn't, because he was like, "Oh, is he dead?" And they said, "Oh, all some things are off, Peter." What did they say? I forgot the word they used.
All the drones, I think, right? That's what they were talking about.
No, it wasn't drones. It was like all. God, what is the word?
I thought he used his spider sense, and that's how he knew he was dead.
Maybe.
I thought that was like the confirmation.
That's how he knew he was hiding and like grabbed the gun out of his hand and beat him. But at the end, like, I mean, they showed Gyllenhaal like talking to him, and then he sort of just passes out from blood loss or something. But I don't know. I think we're gonna find out that he's still alive, just like Vulture's still alive, just like Matt Gargan's still alive. And
yeah, we're definitely getting Sinister Six on film. I forgot.
I mean, at this point, Tom Holland is saying, like, oh, yeah, Sony and Marvel have a long-term agreement. Don't worry, guys. I'm going to be around for a while. So if they do start building towards the Sinister Six, it wouldn't shock me if that's why they were bringing back Jamie Foxx and Alfred Molina, not to play the multiverse versions, just to be a different version of Doc Ock and Electro.
I assumed he's going to fight them all in this movie. That was my guess, that Sinister Six is going to be the villains in this movie.
That would be great, but are they going to bring back Paul Giamatti's Rhino? That's the most important question.
Oh, God.
Like, literally the most cartoonish villain ever put to live action.
Oh, God. You mean besides Electro?
Well, I'm just talking about Giamatti's performance. Like, he was as over the top playing that 30-second role as any character on the Adam West Batman show. Like, he just fully leaned into the ridiculousness of the Rhino character, and it was funny. Frankly, the scene with Rhino might have been the best scene in that entire Spider-Man movie.
And then they just cut away from it, which, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll be able to make it. I think he'll be too busy filming Big Fat Liar 2 and San Andreas 2, so probably won't be able to make it to that one.
Just as long as, like, we don't get any of the previous actors who've played the Goblin or Green Goblin, because I don't want James Franco doing that again. Willem Dafoe is probably too old at this point, and Dane DeHaan just was not good.
If we get a Dafoe cameo in any way, I would take it.
I would take that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them going with a much older Norman Osborn who's, like, more of the I'm going to be in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. Norman Osborn, not the I'm just going to kill Spider-Man Norman Osborn.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like, because Norman Osborn's such a weird character. He's got such a strange history. Like, he's not always a bad guy necessarily, but there's always that fear that he's going to turn bad again. But he's been put in charge of, like, government agencies and stuff, so it would be kind of interesting to see them go that route with a Willem Dafoe reprisal of the character instead of just being hell-bent on killing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
I kind of want them to just go ahead and recast him, but if Dafoe appeared in any way, I would be for it.
Now, that's what they need to get Cranston for. He would be a good Norman Osborn.
Oh, that'd be money. That'd be money. Now I'm going to be disappointed if it's not.
I know the big fan casting for him is like Mr. Sinister, but yeah, he'd be a good Norman too.
He'd be a great Norman.
You could just say that he looks like Bryan Cranston or something to explain that Malcolm in the Middle is canon and that he's going to be playing that role. You can easily explain that away somehow.
I was trying to think, were any of the movies that they referenced in Endgame when they were talking about time travel, have any actors from those movies appeared in the MCU?
That's a great question. I don't think so, just because a lot of them were older. Like, no one was in Back to the Future or Terminator, I don't think. I don't know. That's a good question. I'm sure if you dig deep enough, Marvel fans know everything in regards to that stuff. But
I mean, they pretty much let us know that the Disney movies exist because The Incredibles exist and Parent Trap exists. Mm-hmm. So the rest of the Disney movies must exist. So I like the idea that in some world, Glenn Close is still Cruella de Vil in their universe of the movies, and also Nova Prime.
That'd be amazing. That would be.
My God!
We said that last week, but that's how I first knew who she was from playing that role in 101 Dalmatians. So that would be great.
And it's like Stark calls Thor Lebowski at one point.
He does, yeah.
Who was played by Jeff Bridges, who was Obadiah Stane in the first Iron Man. It's like, when he was younger, was he just constantly giving Obadiah shit for looking like Jeff Bridges? Because they've now established that Jeff Bridges exists.
Yeah.
How did nobody ever make that connection?
I know, that wasn't talked about enough. It was the Doolittle movie that came out last year with oh God, what's his fucking name? Oh my God, Tony Stark. What's the actor's name?
Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, Robert Downey Jr. Was that Doolittle movie Disney or no?
Yeah, I think it might be on Disney Plus, isn't it?
It might be. I saw it not because I saw it at the drive-in last year. It was so terrible. The one with John Cena in it too. So I'm just curious.
Oh yeah, wasn't he a polar bear?
Yeah, he was a polar. Yeah, I know he was an elephant, but I think that was in a commercial or something. But yeah, he was a polar bear in that movie.
That was the pistachio commercials. He was an elephant.
That's what it was. He's doing so many commercials now. I forget which ones he's in and which ones he's not. But he's doing a shit ton now. But yeah, no, I was just gonna say because that movie was so bad. So I don't know if that's canon now because it's Disney, like The Incredibles. So yeah, I don't know. That's a question for another day. Because I guess does that make Star Wars canon? Or it is because
they built the Death Star.
Yeah.
Spider-Man. So yeah.
Yeah, Peter did.
Oh
yeah.
My God. I hate that Kevin Feige has literally been asked more than once, are we going to get a Star Wars Marvel crossover? It's like, no, please, God, no, don't do that.
I know.
For the love of God, no.
You don't need those fan bases colliding. Please, no.
That would be the most obvious, like, cash grab, not done for creative reasons project of all time.
Yeah, because there's just no reason to do it.
And I don't think any Star Wars fan would accept it because the whole premise of Star Wars is that it takes place a long, long time ago.
In a galaxy far, far away.
Right. So, I don't know. I'd never want that to happen. Like, make a fucking comic book if you want to. Everybody has crossed over with everybody in the comics. Batman and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have crossed over in the comics.
Oh, that's amazing.
And one of the best comic book panels of all time is Batman showing Raphael the alley where his parents were killed for some reason. It's the weirdest thing ever. Like, the word bubble is just like, this is where my parents died, Raphael. And it's just so weird and stupid and funny. They actually made a cartoon movie with Batman and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that was, I gotta say, like, I was entertained by it.
Mm-hmm.
I think DC's animation arm has been doing a great job for a long time with the Batman and Superman and Justice League movies that they've been making, because they're not like kids' cartoons. They're definitely meant to be enjoyed by adults as well, especially some of the more adult-oriented ones that are just straight up R-rated. But yeah, like, the comics just have so many weird instances of different things crossing over. Like, there's literally a comic book where Star Trek and Doctor Who cross over.
Oh, really? Holy shit.
So you want to have Luke Skywalker, fucking around with Iron Man? Fine. Somebody can draw it. But please don't put it in a movie.
Yeah.
Isn't there like a Star Trek and Green Lantern crossover comic somewhere?
Probably, honestly. Like, all these different publishers used to have these little mini crossover events before Warner Brothers and Disney owned the two big dogs. But yeah, it would not shock me at all if there was a Star Trek Green Lantern thing.
Yeah,
that wouldn't surprise me. But hopefully they leave the Star Wars stuff in the Marvel crossovers to, like you said, a comic book or the people who could draw it or something like that. I'm not going to say it's never going to happen because we're talking about Disney here and they'll cash in on pretty much everything. But, well, hopefully not in our lifetime. I'll put it that much. I'll just put it that way. I don't need to see that. I would love to see, though, going full circle here, a Mark Hamill cameo in the MCU, even if it's not Luke Skywalker. That is completely okay with me. I think that would be amazing. And I guess we'll find out next episode when we get this Luke Skywalker-esque cameo that Elizabeth Olsen promised us. And if we don't get it, I'm going to tweet her angrily, just because I'll be very, very mad about that. But we'll see. We'll find out what's going to happen next week, and I'm super pumped to be breaking it down with you guys. Any final thoughts, Phil and Chris, before we wind down here? I think we covered everything.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how this ends. I don't want it to end. I want more episodes, but I'm looking forward to seeing what this builds up to and, how this builds up to Doctor Strange.
I agree. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I've been along for the ride since the moment the show started, and I am going to be sad to see it end, but at the same time, like, the fact that they purpose-built a show that was only ever going to be one season, and it's this good, and it's making people want more, just, it makes me think that the future shows that we get, like, Falcon and Winter Soldier is obviously going to be very punchy, but
yeah.
I think we're going to start seeing a little bit more creativity brought into the MCU, which it really feels like James Gunn and Taika Waititi sort of kicked that stuff off by making Guardians and Thor 3 or whatever, Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
So much just more entertaining and different, and they brought their unique styles, and I think that kind of opened Marvel up to the idea of let's do some different things, and the success of this show should tell them, like, keep doing this weird stuff because it's working out.
Yeah, I completely agree. And as we've said, time and time again, it is so much different than anything else they've produced up to this point. Even Doctor Strange, which isn't one of my favorite movies in the MCU, it's different from everything else, and I appreciate it for that more than anything.
You know what's weird? I went back and rewatched Doctor Strange this past week, actually. Didn't you just say that too, Phil? Didn't you just watch it this weekend?
Yeah, I watched it this weekend.
So I almost feel like I like that movie more as time goes on, and I think the main reason that I like it so much is the conclusion of the movie was brilliant, because he didn't have to kill Dormammu or do anything like crazy violent. He just tricked him.
Yeah,
like I loved it. I actually liked Doctor Strange a lot, and when I watched it this time, I didn't notice this because I haven't seen it since I saw Endgame. When I watched it this time and I was watching his conversation with the Ancient One, it definitely laid the groundwork for everything he did to help beat Thanos. Like, him understanding that, I have to give him the Infinity Gem. It's for the greater good. And that was all based off of that conversation he had with the Ancient One. Yeah.
Yeah, it really just... I feel like that movie, I'm appreciating it more with time. I think when it came out, I wasn't fully sold on it. Like, I liked it, but I wanted to see more. And now that they've opened up so many other magic doors in Marvel stuff, we're starting to see, like, the different kinds of magic and how each one is actually used and different from each other. Like this episode specifically established that Wanda's using chaos magic. It's pretty clear that the magic from the dark dimension is what's powering Agatha, or at least something along those lines. Doctor Strange and those guys use a very different form of magic, and I think Loki is probably using something all on his own too. So yeah, like, seeing all these different versions of magic, and they don't even really need to explain the differences. It's just you can tell that something is different by the way they all look.
Yeah.
So, it's crazy.
Yeah. It's an underrated movie.
It is. I think it is. I think it's, at the very least, it's very rewarding to see how much he struggles. I mean, just think about how much he struggles to use the teleportation rings, and then getting the moment of him using this massive ring to bring in all the Avengers in Endgame.
Yeah.
A lot of these movies, I think, to kind of reiterate what we've said many, many times with, like, what you've said, Phil, go rewatch Ultron. I mean, come on, this show is like the Ultron 2.5 sequel. You have to go watch that movie to really appreciate this show, and Doctor Strange as well. I think is another strong suggestion coming out of this show as well, because it's good, and I think the sequel is going to be great too, and that comes out next year. But yeah, this has been great, guys. We got the season finale to look forward to next week. Hopefully we have nothing but positive things to say coming out of it, and again, knowing Marvel's track record, I think we will. I think we're going to be satisfied with something that we do not see coming. I feel like it's going to be something we didn't predict here, so I guess we'll find out next week. But Phil, people can find you on the Twitter machine at PhilDL616, and Chris yourself at BR_Doctor. Phil, Chris, this has been great, guys. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks.